Hello and welcome to the Strixhaven full set review. This particular video will be on red. We have already done white, blue, and black, I believe. I've already sort of gone through in more detail in the white video and a couple of the other ones. But just in case, I'll go over it here again. Our goal for all of these will be to sort of just try and briefly talk about each card. I'll sort of give my 2 cents as a purely historic player to see my thoughts on if the card might see any sort of play, or if it will, where will it, or if it's good or if it's bad, or, you know, the usual. Now, with that out of the way, we'll just go directly to the first red card, which is Academic Disputes. 1 red for an instant. Target creature blocks this turn. If able, you may have it gain reach until end of turn. And you can learn. Red as a color might make more use of the learn mechanic in historic, since we don't get a whole lot of like very permanent card draw. We get impulse stuff, and honestly, the ability to loot or whatever, or is it pillage technically? Sorry, it's discard then draw. It's technically pillage, but the ability to pillage and net a permanent card is actually somewhat relevant here, or is somewhat relevant in the context of the learn mechanic in red. Of course, if you happen to learn for a lesson, that's great, but I think mono red decks, or really heavy red decks that don't have access to like blue or black for card draw, will actually enjoy the learn mechanic. Academic Dispute is okay as a card. It's not going to set the world on fire, but hey, that's not really a problem. Next we have Ardent Dust Speaker. 4 and a red for a 3/4 Minotaur Shaman. When it attacks, you can put an instant sorcery card from your graveyard on the bottom of your library. If you do, exile the top 2 cards of your library. You may play those cards this turn. Not. I mean, the ability to put an instant or sorcery back in your deck from your graveyard is nice. It's actually kind of important, but I don't think it's going to be like some crazy thing. Although it is a Minotaur and a Shaman. Minotaur is having support already in the format with some jumpstart cards, and maybe Shamans will in either this set or future sets. But I'm not super sold on this card being like super popular, but I could be wrong. But I think it's more of a draft card, or like a, you know, teachery card. Next is Blood Age General. 1 in a red for a 2/2 Spirit Warrior. Oh shit, Spirit payoff. Tap attacking spirits, get +1/+0 until the end of the turn. So there's some spirit support in the set already, which is nice, and maybe Is It Spirits might happen. This card will be good if spirits are good. I mean, it's not awful in a vacuum, since it is just a 2-mana 2/2. So it's like a red bear at worst. But if spirits see some play, Blood Age General will likely see some play also. Let's see. Next card is Conspiracy Theorists. 1 in a red for a 2/2 Human Shaman. When it attacks, you may pay 1 to discard a card. If you do, draw a card, and whenever you discard 1 or more non-lands, you may exile them from your graveyard. Hang on. Whenever you discard 1 or more non-land cards, so if you chuck a good card You may exile one of them from your graveyard. If you do, you may cast it this turn. Okay, so you're like chucking a good card, but you still have the ability to like cast it. So that's actually kind of cool. This card might see some play, but I'm not like sold on it, since it is a 2-mana 2/2 with no haste or evasion, but it does have card draw. So it might see some play, but I wouldn't hold my breath. Crackle with Power. 3x, 2 red, sorcery. Crackle with Power deals 5 times X damage to each of up to X targets. Oh, this is Rowan. Will Gasp is Rowan drew from the raw power of Strixhaven, of the Strixhaven Snarl. For a moment she was luminous, transcendent, terrible. That's a cool thought. Again, but I also enjoy Will and Rowan as characters, so. This card, if you can make a buttload of mana, you can blow out your opponents, but, like, there are sort of cards like this already technically in the format, like that Jaya's Legendary Burn spell from Dominaria. And, like, your Banefire style effects don't really see play unless I'm, like, running them in some silly deck or something. So I'm not convinced this card will see a whole lot of play, but I could be wrong. Next is Draconic Intervention. 2 and 2 red for sorcery. As an additional cost to cast this spell, there we go. Exile an instant or sorcery card from your graveyard. Draconic Intervention deals X damage to each non-dragon creature, where X is the exile card's mana value. If a creature dealt damage would die this turn this way, exile instead, exile itself. If you're running some sort of like, is it actual dragons that might see some play? I mean, I have some instants and sorceries in my Atarka World Render EDH deck. This card might want to be put in that deck. But this card will be sort of good if dragons are good, and maybe they will be. But historically they haven't been. But I imagine as a dragon player myself, if you like Commander and you like dragons, you'll probably like Draconic Intervention. On to the next one. On to the next one. Yes, Dragon's Approach. This is a fucking cool art, by the way, for a common. 3 and a red for sorcery. Dragon's Approach deals 3 damage to each opponent. You may exile Dragon's Approach and 4 cards named Dragon's Approach from your graveyard. If you do, search for your library for a dragon creature, put it on the battlefield and shuffle. And a deck can have any number of cards named Dragon's Approach. Again, this is one of those, if dragons are good and there are dragons you want to tutor for and bring right into play, the card will see play. Again, as a dragon player in EDH, this honestly is kind of cool. I'm not gonna lie. And I may or may not run some of these, but even then, I don't know if they're great, but it is cool. Not gonna lie. In Commander. In Historic, best of 3, maybe. Next is Ifrit Flame Painter. 3 and a red for a 1/4 Ifrit Shaman with double strike. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you may cast target instant or... Wait, what? Combat damage to instant... When Ifrit Flame Painter deals combat damage to a player, you may cast target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard without paying its mana cost. If a spell will be cast this way, exile it. The double strike part's actually kind of cool. It's a little slow unless you can like give it haste the turn it comes out, and even then it's kind of got to be on an empty board. But man, you could do some silly shit with this card. This is more of like a Timmy sort of what the deck card kind of card, but it could maybe see some play. But I wouldn't hold my breath. But I might tinker with this one in the future. Next is Enthusiastic Study. 3 in a red, instant target creature gets +3/+1 and trample until end of turn, where you may learn. It's a little expensive for a combat trick, but it does give trample, so it like makes your thing stronger and gives it a form of evasion. And as I've talked about, I think learning to pillage in red might actually be kind of good. The only so as a combat trick, it might see some really, really fringe play, but even then I'm not totally convinced. I will, again, I'll try and make this the last time I drive this point home, where I think if you're running a mono-white, if you're running white or red, you could arguably make some use out of Learn as the two colors that have the weakest card draw from a design standpoint. Yes, they do technically have card draw, though white has little to none. Red has some, but you very rarely ever permanently net the card. It's impulse draws, usually. So you might play it for the Learn, or the Learn might set this card over the top from you'll probably never see it to might see some play. On to the next one. That's Will and Rowan again. Explosive Welcome. 7 and a red. Instant. Deals 5 damage to any target and 3 damage to any other. Add 3 red. This card is cool. It is not good. I mean, maybe if you're running some like Gruul ramp deck, you can make something happen. And the ability to like get a the 3 mana afterwards is kind of useful. Let me read this. Rowan and Will were a natural fit in Prismari College, the school of outrageous elemental arts. As am I, but I'm also like, I mean, that's what I believe my own to be. But hey, what are you gonna do? This card, however, it's fun in a Timmy card, but I'd be surprised if it sees much play. Next is Fervent Mastery. 3 and 2 red for a sorcery, where you can pay 2 and 2 red instead. If you pay 2 and 2 red, an opponent discards a number of cards and draws 3. Search your library for up to 3 cards, put them into your hand, shuffle, then discard 3 cards at random. This is some real RNG high roll of like card draw in red, which is a way that one of the ways that red gets card draw is like very chaotic card draw, and I that's a good balance point. I understand why. As a red planeswalker at heart, I don't think this card will see a whole lot of play. But, I mean, I could be wrong, but I think this might actually be the weakest mastery we've seen so far. So, yeah, I don't think this card will really see much play at all. Next is First Day of Class. 1 in red for an instant. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control this turn, put a +1/+1 counter on it, and it gains haste until end of turn, where you may learn. I believe there is some stupid shenanigans in like Commander that like can give you like crazy infinite combos. I'm certain that there is some weird infinite combo, summon a million little dudes and give them all haste and make them bigger, kind of like combo kill in the format. I am certain that this exists somewhere in the format if you look hard enough and you tinker long enough. But other than that, I don't see this. I mean, this card might see some play. Honestly, the ability to give things haste at instant speed is nice. I'm not gonna lie, and the learn is just a little extra gravy on top. So this card might see some fringe play, but it'll see like a good amount of fringe play, you know. But that's my thought on that card. On to the next one. Fuming Effigy. 3 and a red for a 4/3 spirit, yawning coming. Whoo! Whenever one or more cards leave your graveyard, Fuming Effigy deals 1 damage to each opponent. So if shit leaves your graveyard, And that can be from graveyard to exile, or from graveyard back to library, or graveyard to hand. It pings each opponent. There's something here. My brewer's brain is kind of tickled here, so there's that. So there's something here. It's not a miserable card, being a 4-mana 4/3. It's fucking a hill giant, I believe is what they're called. But you don't really run it for the base creature. You run it to where you can make a or take effect or make use of the effect where cards leaving your yard pinging opponents. That's the only reason you'll really run this card, but I'm convinced that there's something really good here. Next is Grinning Ignis. 3 and a red for a 2/2 elemental where you can pay 1 red. Whoo! To return Grinning Ignis to its owner's hand, add 2 colors and a red. Activate this only as a sorcery. Okay, with the Storm cards coming in Mystical Archive and Flaming Steamkin and Bergie, there is some fucking banana sandwiches infinite mana combo in this card and red in the format. It's there. I haven't thought about what it is yet, but it's fucking there somewhere. So, sincerely watch for this card. This card might be fucking broken. I'm convinced of it. Next is Hall Monitor. 1 mana, 1/1 haste, where for 1 and a red you can tap to make target creature unable to block for a turn. Flavor text is nice, and the art's actually kind of cool. The card, I mean, it's not awful. It's like fine, I guess. I don't think you'd really run it outside of like a good budget alternative to another card, or if you're like just getting into Arena. So it's like really a teaching card. Yeah, it's like teaching and draft card. Next card is Heated Debate. 3 and a red for an instant. Spell can't be countered. Deals 4 damage to a creature or walker. I mean, it's hi Carmel. Hi, sweetheart. Heated Debate is actually it's fine. What, baby girl? I love you. What? Would you like pets? Yeah, Heated Debate is an okay card. I mean, the ability to, like, where it can't be countered is somewhat relevant. Although, like, there are ways to circumvent that in blue, because you can, like, counter shit on the stack, which does not, Oh. I actually didn't pay attention to the parenthetical text. What are you doing? You goober of a cat? The ability to go right through wards might actually be kind of important. So if wards get really, really popular on creatures and walkers, this card might actually see a lot of play. But other than that, I'd be very surprised if it sees a whole lot of play. But, I mean, 3 mana to deal 4 damage isn't bad, so. Next is Igneous Inspiration. 2 and a red for a sorcery. Where the inspiration deals 3 damage to any target. And you learn. 3 mana sorcery to deal 3 damage to any target, and then you pillage is okay. I mean, it's not bad. Whatever that Ravnican burn spell where it's like deal 4, or your opponent can either like get hit for 4 or you draw 3 cards. It's kind of giving me whatever that card's called vibe. But like it's a lesser effect on both axes, but you get both axes guaranteed. I'm actually this card might see some good budget burn play. I'm actually kind of convinced on this. Next is Illuminate History. 2 and 2 red for a sorcery lesson. Discard any number of cards, then draw that many cards. Then, if there are 7 or more cards in your graveyard, make a 3/2 red-white spirit creature token. That's honestly pretty good. This might be the best lesson so far in a vacuum, assuming that you didn't learn for it you didn't learn for this card out of your sideboard. I could see myself running Illuminate History just normally, no questions asked. This is actually, I'm convinced might actually see some play. It's one of those 4 mana, discard all your bad cards, draw that many cards, and if you have a lot of cards in your graveyard, afterwards you also make a 3/2 for 4 mana. Like, I think this is honestly, like, the best lesson, and yeah, I see really, really good potential in this card. On to the next one. On to the next one. Illustrious Historian. 1 and a red. 2/1 Human Shaman. For 5 mana, you can exile it from your graveyard and create a tapped 3/2 red and white spirit creature token. I mean, the ability to exile stuff from your own yard from with that spirit from earlier, I clearly see what's going on here. So that's nice that the synergy exists inside the set. A 2 mana 2/1 is, as a common, is not bad. And the ability to cast this card in later in your graveyard when it's doing nothing to make a 3/2 is not awful. This is actually, like, again, as a red player at heart, if you're running like a no rare kind of like mono red just beat down kind of deck, like I could see you actually running 1 or 2 Illustrious Historians and not hating yourself. Again, it's one of those, like, it's probably a really good example of like a teaching card or like a learning card. Of course, like all of them, they will be replaced pretty soon once your collection grows, but this is one that you could like run and you aren't gonna hate. Next is Mascot Interception. 3 and a red for a sorcery. It costs 3 less to cast. If it targets a creature token, gain control of it, untap it, gets +2/0 and haste till end of turn. I mean, maybe if some creature token deck becomes like a thing, then maybe you'll run this. But really, like, it's already fighting for claim the Firstborn. Claim the Firstborn is really the only one of these sort of, what are they called, tyranny effects that like really ever sees play. And I don't think Mascot Interception is gonna like join that club. So like a draft card and like a good teaching card, but that's about it. Let's see. Next is Pigment Storm. 3 and 2 red for a sorcery, deals 5 damage to a creature. Excess damage is dealt at the creature's controller. Hey, fucking spell trample. Honestly, it's fine. 5 mana is a little expensive, but the ability to remove a creature and do a little damage to your opponent is cool. I'm not convinced it's going to see a whole lot of play, but it is cool. And granted, I could be wrong about this. You never know. On to the next card. Let's see. Pillar Drop Warden. 3 and a red for a 1/5 Spirit Dwarf with Reach, where for 2 and tapping and sacrificing the Warden, you can return target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand, activate only as a sorcery. Again, draft card, a good teaching somebody magic card, but you never really will probably see this see play ever. Retriever Phoenix. Oh yeah, this card. I gotta be honest, again, as a red player, I love me my Phoenixes, and the format has a lot of them. Phoenix Tribal. 3 in a red for a 2/2 Phoenix with flying and haste. When it enters the battlefield, if you cast it, you can learn. Again, whether you get a lesson or you just pillage is up to you. As long as Retriever Phoenix is in your graveyard, if you would learn, you may instead return Retriever Phoenix to the battlefield. Honestly, yet another reason to unironically run, like, Retriever Phoenix. I'm actually a little bit... Honey? Hi, honey. Hi, baby girl. Go. Sorry, my cat threw my brain off. Another reason, besides the ability to get more permanent card draw in red that we talked about earlier, another ability, or reason, or payoff to actually, like, sort of want to learn in red decks is the ability to get back a Retriever Phoenix. Will this dislodge the hopes I have for, like, Arc-like Phoenix? I don't know if it'll, like, become the new Phoenix everybody tries to get to learn, to get to work. This... I mean, it might see play. It's one of those... It's a learn payoff. If you are learning in a deck and you're playing red, you should probably play Retriever Phoenix. But if you're not learning, don't ever play it. There are better Phoenixes for the same mana cost and at a similar rarity. Next is Start from Scratch. 2 in a red for a sorcery lesson. Deals 1 damage to any target or destroy target artifact. I don't know if you would ever willingly, again, unless you're like playing a lot of learn cards and you're cool with fetching this out of your sideboard. But if you aren't running a whole lot of learn cards like most lesson cards, you can just run a Braid, which is I would argue, a superior version of this. Although, yes, the ability to target walkers and players is important, but I think it doesn't make it better than a Braid. Next card is Storm Kiln Artist, 3 and a red for a 2/2 Dwarf Shaman. Gets +1/+0 for each artifact you control, and whenever you cast a copy, instant or sorcery, make a treasure. There's some... I mean, this card's cool, but I don't think it's really terribly good. But I could be wrong. Maybe there's some weird treasure token-y deck, or if I can ever get like enough wild cards for that Revel and Riches treasure deck to sort of like come together. But other than that, I mean, I don't think it'll really see play. It is cool though. And maybe the ability... Well, okay, actually, now that I think about it, Magecraft in, like, a Storm deck can be kind of useful to, like, generate additional mana. So maybe this card might actually see more play than I thought about. Anywho. Sudden Breakthrough. 1 in a red for an instant. Target creature gets +2/+0 and first strike until end of turn. Make a treasure token. These type of combat effects where you give your creature first strike very rarely see a whole lot of play. I could see this scene play in some sort of Boros Feather style deck where not only do you give your creature the buff, you also like generate the mana with a treasure token to cast yet another like protection spell kind of thing or combat trick. So this card might see some play. I could be wrong, but I think this one could see play, but it'll be really niche. So, meh. Next is Tome Shredder. Ah, yes, the dog eating the homework. Classic. 3 in a red, 2/2 wolf, haste, where you can tap it to exile an instant or sorcery card in your yard and put a 1/1 counter on Tome Shredder. I mean, it's an interesting card, but I'm not, like, over the goddamn moon about it. Yeah, I mean, I don't see this really seeing a whole lot of play. Honestly, like, it's like a Timmy card. It's fine. I'm sure there's something funny and goofy to do with it, but I don't think it's terribly good. Last card for red is Twin Scroll Shaman. 2 in a red for a 1/2 double strike dwarf shaman. It's fine. This card is very vanilla. I mean, maybe if you're running some whatever Magda, whatever her name is, like dwarf tribal deck, you might run this, and boy oh boy, that's a big old might. But this is one of those, it's an okay draft card and a good card to teach people how to play with, and I think that's really where a good chunk of these cards will go. But that is the last red card. The next video, if I'm ordering these correctly, will be green. But that is all for the red video of the Strixhaven reveals and review. Like the video if you like it, sub if you like me, and if you have your own thoughts or insights where you think card X or Y will be great or garbage, that's what comments are for. Just keep it civil and everything will be fine. And remember, I'm pulling for you. We're all in this together.